All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Katie McCown, and I am coming to you today from Local First Arizona as part of our Arizona Economic Resource Center. We are very, very excited to have all of you joining us today. The Arizona Economic Resource Center and Local First Arizona has developed a series of webinars that we will be hosting this year, one every quarter. Today is the first of those webinars, and we will be focusing on federal funding today. So we're very, very excited to have all of you join us for this session today. And as I mentioned, when we just got rolling, this will be recorded and we will house this somewhere where people can have access to after the fact. If you are interested in going back and checking in on any of the information you heard today. So we will go ahead and get started. Okay, so just a quick overview of how things will be going. I just wanted to again start by welcoming everyone to this series. We are very, very excited to have you here, and we are very excited to be hosting this and think that it will be chock full of very useful, helpful information. And so what we'll do is I will start off with just a quick overview of who I am, who Local First and the Resource Center are, and why it is that we are here today doing this webinar. And then that'll be just a brief, quick introduction. And then after that, we'll get into the good stuff. We will start off with Jeff from the EDA, and he is going to tell us all about their wonderful programs. And then we'll go into Clint with the USDA, and then we will wrap it up with Jenna from the EPA. And so I have given each of these presenters a good chunk of time to talk with you all about the programs they have. But then we have reserved the last several minutes of the session for questions. And so you can feel free to leave your questions till the end if you'd like to, but also all of these presenters are wonderful and are more than happy to answer questions as we go as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get rolling. As I mentioned, my name is Katie McCown, and I am our Senior Manager of Economic Development at Local First Arizona. I am being joined today by a couple of my colleagues, Vida Lopez and Jenna Rao. They will be helping out with the chat and answering any questions and any kind of logistics here on the back end. So you might see them pop in and make a few comments or answer questions, and they are very wonderful, and I'm excited that they've joined us on this call today. Okay. So a little bit about the Resource Center and why we are here today. So as you all might be familiar with Local First Arizona, we are a nonprofit that has been in existence for 20 years. We are based in Phoenix, but we serve the state. The department that I am in charge of is called the Arizona Economic Resource Center. This department was started 3 years ago with the intention of getting out in front of all of the latest grant opportunities that were coming down the pike, both federal, state, and foundation. And we wanted to get in and fill the gap that we were seeing between offerings being out there, but none of that money going into the state of Arizona. And we were trying to figure out, why is this happening? What is going on? And in all of that came the Resource Center. And so what we do is we offer grant research, grant writing, and grant management services, all at no cost. In order to qualify to work with us, it's very, very simple. We work with organizations that are based in Arizona. You have to be small enough that you do not have your own grant writer on payroll. And that's basically it. Those are the qualifications to be able to work with us. We work with nonprofits, municipalities, and even some county governments, tribes, and tribal organizations. So if you and your organization fall within one of those buckets and you do not have your own grant writer on staff, then yes, we are able to work with you. And yes, you qualify for our services. And again, they all come at no cost. And we can help you with research before a grant application opportunity, figuring out which funder is the right fit for you. We can provide you with a grant writer at no cost to write that application. And we can help you on the back end with the management of it as well. And so that is just a very brief, quick overview of who we are, what we do, and why we are the ones who are hosting this webinar today. So throughout the last 3 years of the Resource Center being in existence, we have found that lots and lots and lots of our clients are interested in federal grant opportunities, in particular from these 3 organizations that we have featured today. And so because of that, we thought that it would be a good idea to gather them together, let them present and be available for any questions, any concerns, anything like that that people have who are interested in applying to their organizations. And so with that intention today, we hope that this will be very helpful and very useful information. And these slides here, as well as the slides that the presenters have, will be available after the fact, and we are more than happy to send those out to you. And so with that, I will go ahead and turn the time over to Jeff. Jeff Hayes is coming to us today from the U.S. Economic Development Administration. And I will stop sharing my screen so that he can take over.
So just a quick question. Am I sharing my presentation or are you guys posting what I sent you?
Can you share it? Is that okay?
Sure, that's fine.
All right, I will go ahead and stop that. Let's see. Look.
Can you guys see that?
There we go. Thanks, Jeff.
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. Appreciate every resource. We've partnered with the Local First on so many different projects, and so I keep waiting for my toaster, my prize to come through, my referrals. Anyway, it's an inside joke there, but good morning. I want to just present a little bit about our programs. So I actually am the sole representative for EDA that covers the state of Arizona. I'm also covering Northern California as well. Our Seattle office is the regional office, which monitors all the funding and grant support through that services there. A little bit about what we do is, let me see. Go there. Our basic goal is to support business development and economic expansion whenever possible, or support. So we provide grant-based investments to tribes, states, and local governments. Any areas that are suffering what they would look at considered economic distress, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Really looking to try to provide, target or foster private capital investment by using monies for planning or local investments into local infrastructure that then can lead to private capital investments. Really looking at regional initiatives as possible or locally developed initiatives. We look both sides. It can be a small entity or a regional impact that we're trying to fund. But we do look at some competitiveness. Our funds are not allocated by state for the most part. And so, we're looking at any state having equal representation, but we're trying to make sure that each project is competitive in its own stance. So that's why I'm here as more of a customer service rep to help foster and develop those projects from the initiative part of it. So eligible applicants are kind of the standard programs for most federal agencies. We can do it districts, Indian tribe or any consortium, state, county, local, any political subdivision of a state, higher institution, colleges, community colleges, private or not private nonprofit or public nonprofit organizations. In those cases, they usually are working with some kind of political subdivision of a state. So they're maybe like assistant agency or like one of the council of governments that we have here in the state of COGS. The groups that are not eligible for direct assistance are for-profit entities and individuals, again, typical to most federal programs. So our key thing when we talk about economic distress, we look at a little different and from what USDA and some other agencies look at. We look at the 24-month unemployment rate, which is we access to a site called statsamerica.org. It can give you a great resource on a lot of demographic information on areas. So we're looking at either one, the 24-month unemployment rate has to be at least 1% or above the nation's, not the states, but the nation's averages. Or we look at the per capita income being 80% or less than what the national average is. And if you use statsamerica.gov, or I'm sorry, .org, they can provide that information through their website and actually do it on a multiple level, whether it's by census tracts or by community. But we're also looking at special needs, and those things are be like disaster areas. If there's an area that's had a significant number of layoffs, the coal communities for Arizona, that is Apache, Navajo, and Coconino. And then if they are persistent poverty counties. So when we look at that, we're looking at the elemental criteria of either the unemployment and or the per capita income. It can be either one, but we like to see both, obviously, to really support the addressed elements. And then if we add on these other special needs, it can help raise the level of participation that EDA will provide. So, and I'll get a little bit more in some of the products we do here in a second, but just for example, if you have anywhere from the typical lowest level would be at the bottom here, which is 50 dollar for dollar leverage, and you'd have to have a 24-month unemployment rate of at least 1% over the national average, or per capita 80% of the national average. And then it can go up to these higher levels up to a point of 80% participation from EDA, requiring only a 20% leverage from the community. We can't match other federal funds, but a lot of that resources and leverage can be from in-kind services from staff or consultants, et cetera. So there's a pretty good range of participation. I'd say the bulk of the projects that we're working on right now are somewhere in the 70 to 80% ratio that we're supporting. So some of the investment priorities that we're looking for, of course, across the board for, again, most federal agencies is equity, recovery and resilience, workforce development, manufacturing, technology-based economic development, environmentally sustainable development, and then, of course, exports and foreign direct investments. Probably the top four, the ones that we're always dealing with here in Arizona for the most part. So grant programs, one of the things we look at, we actually have two programs that are our anchor, well, three actually, technically. First is our public works. This is your traditional investment in some kind of infrastructure, water, sewers, roads, streets, infrastructure, and in some cases, buildings that are owned by the municipalities or local governments that would be then supported or added on or improved to support a business going in. And I'll just throw out, we have a great example here. This is going on in San Luis right now, where they have a manufacturer for produces interiors for cars. They have an opportunity for a lucrative contract for a national car manufacturer. Just the simple extension of services of water and sewer to that site will allow them to grow and exponentially grow in their resources. And that investment's going to be less than $1 million, but it'll actually double the amount of jobs that they'll have. So we see that as a great competitive product because they're able to come up with the local match. The city will own all the infrastructure and up to the curb of the facility, but you'll see that dramatic impact that'll happen for the communities of those jobs and that local employer. So that's a great example of a public works project. This other one is our economic adjustment program. This is really a form of trying to set up or support existing revolving loan funds. We work under the disaster relief, technical assistance. And when we refer to technical assistance, a lot of this can be in the form of planning grants, feasibility studies, anything that can help move a product forward towards future funding. And I call it what I would say a pre-development package is the most useful one, where if you've got a capital project you're trying to look at, then you can explore the idea of what do you need to do, the environmental, the soil testing, preliminary engineering reports or design reports, architectural reports, everything you need to get that project further along up to a point where it's ready to be funded by another agency and or possibly EDA or bank funding. It allows you to get through that process. Again, it can go to that 50 to 80% range of match, but it's an easy process to go through and really augments future investments going forward. Some of the other programs we also look at are the local technical assistance and short plan. So there are groups like NACOG, CEGO, Central Arizona Association of Governments. They are doing ongoing SEDS programs where they do strategic economic development strategies. We fund those on an annual or 3-year basis or 5-year basis, excuse me. But also if there's a regional SEDS development or some strategy that a collaborative is looking at, or a community like a county that might be looking at something internally to their own purposes, we can help fund those as well. Or again, a feasibility study or some other research. We're doing with Kokopah right now to do a feasibility study on a slaughterhouse and small niche packing plant there on the tribe down south of Yuma. So then we have our partnership plannings and the university centers. Our university center here is based in Tucson. It is called Native Forge, and its entire focus is working with tribal entrepreneurs and providing that basic skill sets and education to help augment their private businesses, and as well as personal development. And so they're on their going on their third year, and it's growing every year, and they've added quite a bit of curriculum there. And then trade adjustment assistance would be elements of, but they're, more on a state level basis where we can do funds. But currently right now we have about 15 products underway, being either grant management or construction, that are individually running, from tribal to several things with Fort Mojave, Fort Apache. We've done as far as down south Bisbee, Kokopah, Prescott into it. So there's quite a variety of projects, anywhere from infrastructure to equipment to just planning, training. And right now, I think we got about 4 projects that we're working closely with Local First on, so doing grant writing for future projects right now. A little more background on the program. So that talk about the public works. Generally, we now actually can go up to $5 million for project, but the reality is it's competitive. We're saying to keep the projects about a $1 to $3 million. But the things we can fund are the infrastructure to support or design an industrial park, workforce training facilities. We do not do programming, but we can do everything to help foster that programming by setting up the infrastructure there. So business incubators or accelerators, wastewater, broadband systems, and not being the national regional systems, but something local, logistics centers, science and research projects, and tech-based facilities, and some brownfields redevelopment. So those are the broad spectrum of public works. It's very wide open in a sense, but it again has to be anchored in that applicant ownership element. And then the economic adjustment assistance, these are most flexible ones we have. As I mentioned before, we can cover some construction when it relates to remodeling, or not where we're not developing new land, but renovation. This technical assistance, we're going any kind of feasibility studies, planning documents, things like that. The revolving loan funds. We also do a lot with the disaster mitigation relief. So we're doing quite a few projects up in because our major disasters we've had from the last 2 years were in Coconino, Apache, and Navajo, which also coincide with the coal communities. But we've got several projects up there for City of Page and Hopi. So then we have the short-term planning and this economic analysis, the feasibility studies. There's a lot of things that people are rushing out in to build these projects, but have they really thought the business aspect through, the operational plans, things like that? And that's where we're willing to support those type of projects and really bolster the success of your project, especially if you're going to come back to us with EDA for capital improvements. But also if you go to USDA or a bank, then you'll have a much stronger plan in place and able to leverage those dollars. A key component of this, just for economic assistance, is our assistance to coal communities. And we just got, of course, our budget got approved. We had not really spent any money till last year when I came involved. We've got about $900,000 out the door last year. This year, they've increased our pot of money, and Arizona is the only one in the Western states that has a coal, at least from our region. So we have $1.9 million available for this type of work dedicated to those 3 counties. And so we're soliciting applications right now and working with them, trying to get some of these technical assistance projects off the ground. So if you do have any, so you're working in those areas, certainly reach out to me, please, and we can have some conversations. We talk about that local technical assistance a little bit more detail, like strategies, business plans, training. We don't do the training, but helping augment like the curriculum or the equipment, things like that. Any kind of feasibility study or strategies that you're looking for, master plans for a publicly owned industrial site, those disaster issues. When we talk about disaster, the products don't have to necessarily deal with mitigation of a disaster, but it looks at recovery or opportunities to prevent it. It could be a flood canal that would disrupt a business district or something. We don't cross into residential. We're always focused on the business side, but again, there's a lot of elements that share those facilities, and we can prorate that product or separate it. Again, we've done quite a few incubators and maker spaces. We have those both in Maricopa College, Community College. They're actually downtown Phoenix is a very phenomenal maker space, as well as the U of A Forge facility downtown Tucson. And then we do some feasibility study for broadband systems, which would probably be more on a local level. So to kind of wrap that up, I always encourage this thing is that the best way to start these projects out is to have a conversation. So if there's an interest in a product, happy to take a short, half an hour to hour, flush out the project, discuss the projects, what the investments would be and the beneficiaries, to see if it's scalable and fundable and can be competitive. And if they're not, what other resources we can possibly bring. So my information's on the slide. But most people seem to have a lot of that, but it's available. You can reach out and call me or send me an email. Again, happy to set up a call, discuss these things. That front call saves so much time and energy when people run down the process and start chasing monies and find out they're not eligible, and it gets disappointing. So we really encourage that conversation early on, and that usually leads to the most successful products because we're making your project easier. We're focusing it on the successful steps to that and getting it funded. And then hopefully also personally bringing in partners like USDA and others. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And I would like to underscore something that Jeff mentioned, which is making sure that you reach out to have that meeting beforehand, have that call. Not all funders allow that opportunity, and that is like gold. So really make sure that you take him up on that. He means it. We have had several meetings with Jeff and with clients of ours, and he is just wonderful about talking you through your project and what would be the best funding opportunities for that. So again, not always offered by funders, so definitely take advantage of that. Thank you.
And I'm
very,
much
very
nicer
much.
than Clint, we don't. I go
That's
way back.
right. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Poor
Thanks, everyone.
Clint.
Thank you.
So without further ado, we will turn it over to Clint.
All right. Hey, thanks so much. Let me see if I can get my screen on. I'm very there we go. Not good at that. So here we go. Again, thanks so much for asking us to present and letting us present. We've have several projects with the Local First as well, and I kind of taking a little bit different tact than what Jeff did, but I will kind of go over some basics of our programs. First of all, I want to let you know USDA Rural Development is one of several agencies within USDA. So, and then within USDA Rural Development, we have the Rural Business Cooperative Service that I work for. We have community programs, which do our community facilities and water and waste or water and environmental programs. And then we have a rural housing program. All of these have direct loans or guaranteed loans. Some of the programs have direct loans, some have grants. Again, as was mentioned by Jeff, by us, the best thing to do is to kind of reach out to us, and we can certainly, before you spend a lot of time, kind of get you on the right track. So my focus today is going to be primarily on the Rural Business Cooperative Service programs that we have, and even then, I'm only going to touch base, but my presentation is more into the grant writing. So let me move on here. So what are some of the annual grant opportunities that we have in the Rural Business Cooperative Service? We have a Rural Business Development Grant. That's kind of a wide-ranging grant that can do planning, some planning technical assistance training. We can do revolving loan funds with that. We can have some planning, some small construction, things like that. That's usually announced each December, and it closes every February 28th. That's kind of been our standard here for the last 3 years. We have rural cooperative development grants and socially disadvantaged group grants. These are specific to cooperative development. So trying to develop cooperatives in rural areas. One of the things is what is our focus? Our focus is rural, cities and towns in the rural business cooperative service, cities and towns less than 50,000 population. We have a map. We can, if there's somebody, if you're close to an urban area, there's opportunities where we can look at your census, where you are in the census tract on the map, and maybe get you an exception if you're in a census string. Kind of a unique thing that we have. We're also focused on some of our underserved counties, persistent poverty counties. For us, that's Navajo, Apache, Santa Cruz, and Graham County. We also have some focus on the coal communities, and then we also have what we're calling we call Rural Partners Network, which is all of government focus on getting federal resources to certain communities. And here in Arizona, that is primarily focused on our Native American communities. Again, annual grant opportunities under RBCS. These are a couple with the Rural Energy for America programs. There's a lot of money available for renewable energy. So this rural energy audit and rural economic development assistance grants go to nonprofits and universities, institutions of higher education to assist eligible rural small businesses and agriculture producers put together grant applications. It's a continuous application cycle with a January 31st deadline. And then from those applications on hand as of January 31st, we'll make a couple selections. We also have started our REAP technical assistance grant. We got we just closed. We just had a deadline. It was a 30-day short deadline. But we also got a couple last year that are organizations, Local First being one, out there working with our small businesses and agriculture producers to do renewable energy systems and energy efficiency improvements. Now, while nonprofits, public bodies, tribes aren't necessarily eligible for those, we do know you're out in your community. There's a push for renewable energy. They do save people money, so we want to make sure that you're aware of those and be aware of the that those funds are available and that the technical assistance is available for applicants. I'm going to give you some websites here for some resources. I'll just tell you, USDA Rural Development has over 70 programs. Our website can be overwhelming. Be patient, give us a call. We'll help you through. But one of these is this top one here, kind of gets you to our programs and services. This next one gives you a link to a program matrix, which I find very, very useful and very helpful. Let me show you what the first page of that looks like this. And then this is just one page out of it. And it'll take you to the program, give you a basic overview, who the eligible applicants are, population limits, and then additional information, which always includes a website, a link to a website. That is a good tool for people to have. Not the only tool. Again, we always recommend that you give us a call. Here's a link to our Arizona website. There's a link in there that says subscribe to receive emails through, or a link in there that says subscribe to receive emails through Gov Delivery. You can go in there and subscribe to all kinds of different things, that different programs that you might be interested in, grants, loans, what they might be for economic development, revolving loan funds, renewable energy. So I would encourage you to do that. The other place is grants.gov. When you log into that, there is, or you get in that, you can set up subscriptions for the different types of grants that are eligible. The other thing that we do here and we have a whole page of contacts that I'll at the end of the program. Give us a call. We keep a list of people that are interested in grants, and then once the various grants are announced, we'll send you out the notice of funding availability and the application material. Okay, so again, there's a picture of those resources. There was when I was approached to do this, it was asked to provide some tips and tricks about grant applications and things that we've seen, and what would we like to see in our grant applications. Well, number one, start early. Don't wait, until a week before the deadline. It's much too late. Make sure you're registered in the system for award management and have your unique entity identifier. I hear horror stories about the navigating through that, so you need to start early. Have information. You're going to have to provide some information. Have it available or gather it if you can't get it in the first time. But if you don't have that registration and that unique entity identifier, you're not going to be eligible. Next tip and trick that we have is read the funding announcement. These come out as either notice of funding availability, notice of solicitation of application, notice of funding opportunity. Could be a number of alphabet soup that they might be called, but read those and seek clarification. Ask questions from the contact person in the funding announcement, whether it's by phone or by email. Be persistent in getting your questions answered. Seems that phones don't get answered and emails don't get responded to timely sometimes, but you got to be persistent. Also, if you feel like as a last resort, if we're not the contact, we're happy to help you find a contact if you give us a ring. Moving on, use the available grant application materials from the agency announcing the grant. That's always a big thing. A lot of them have an application template or a guide. If not, the narrative requirements will be listed in the funding announcement. Find or make sure that you're using the current version of the forms. There's a lot of forms. You can go do a search for an SF 424 application for federal assistance, but it might not be the current version, and it might not have the information that's necessary. So try to make sure you get the current version of the forms. And one thing I saw in a recent couple of grant announcements that I saw, they advised you may have to invest in some upgraded software, especially Adobe Acrobat type stuff. It shouldn't be the most expensive, but the reader version that comes with most personal computers isn't going to be enough. So keep that in mind. Do not assume that application materials have not changed since a previous announcement. Make sure you use the current information available. We were disappointed on our rural business development grant application that we got some from templates that we put out 3 and 4 years ago. Agencies do work hard to make sure that they keep these things updated, and there's always different little nuances that come through that can be new requirements. So we always try to keep those up to date. So use the most current information available with the application materials. Then the next thing is to read and understand how to submit the grant. It may be through grants.gov. It may be directly to the agency. Again, you want to, if there was something that said directly to the agency and it went to grants.gov, we might not be looking for it there. Likewise, if the requirement is to go through grants.gov and it gets sent to us, you didn't follow the requirements of the NOFA. We try to be flexible if we can, but sometimes we can't. Every grantee is going to want to know, do you have the capacity to manage grant, service a grant? So you're going to have some financial information readily available. That includes, audits. A lot of times, our applications ask for, the previous 3 years history. So you might need audits. If that audit isn't ready, you do have fiscal year end statements that you need to submit. And then we also need current financial statements. In some cases, again, depending on the application or on the requirements of the funding announcement, they may want current within 90 days or within 30 days. So make sure you have that financial information readily available. When it goes to writing the grant, it's, read the funding announcement. I put a highlight on there because, whatever color you use or multiple colors, those are hard to read, but sometimes that highlighting that will help you out in that. But read the funding announcement again, and again. As you put your package together, your written narrative or whatever, I always say be concise and precise. What are you going to do? Why are you doing it? Who is going to do it? The summary of the qualifications. How are you going to do it with your budget and your matching funds? How are you going to measure the performance? When are you going to do it? Your performance milestones that match up with your budget. Where are you going to do it? A description of the community or the beneficiary. And then, there's at the end of that, it's nice. There's really nice. I've seen a lot of different narratives out there. Sometimes this grant might be the grant writer's opus, but for the people that are reading it, they have several of them to read. So concise and precise is kind of the best way to go. After that, after grant selection and award, make sure you understand the grant agreement or the grant contract. Seek clarifications, ask questions from the contact listed if necessary. Typically, you're going to get a notice of award or a letter of conditions. Same thing. Make sure that you understand the grant agreement, the grant contract, the letter of conditions, the letter of award, etc. Understand your obligation post-grant award. There's a lot that has to be done after the grant is made. Periodic reporting, whether it's quarterly, semi-annually. What's the reimbursement process? Required documentation? How often you can request reimbursements? You're going to have to maintain your grantee's registration in the system for award management. And then one of the things that you'll see a lot floated around is this 2 CFR Part 200, which is CFR is a Code of Federal Regulations, but this is the Uniform Administrative Requirements, Cost Principles, and Audit Requirements for federal grants. Every agency every federal agency uses these. If it's a $5,000 little grant up to a multi-million-dollar grant, this is the Uniform Administrative Requirements. We'll always say make sure your legal and financial teams are aware of and familiar with 2 CFR Part 200. It'll keep you out of trouble. Ask for a copy from the awarding agency, and then agencies will have supplements specific to their agency. But for the most part, 99% of it is going to be in this 2 CFR Part 200. Our contact information is here, USDA Rural Development, Rural Business Cooperative Service. This is our main line. This is our website. But you have we have 5 of us on our team. Any one of us with this main line, we answer it, respond back within usually within 24 hours. But we have our email addresses here and our titles, and we're all happy to work with you, answer any questions, especially up front. It's a time well spent. And then in addition, our state energy coordinator for our Rural Energy for America programs is Jessie. She carries an additional title. A lot of us can not additional title, but additional duty. A lot of us can answer those on the periphery, but Jessie is excellent as far as understanding our Rural Energy for America programs. So with that, appreciate the opportunity to present, and look forward to hearing from some of you.
Thank you so much, Clint. So without even meaning to, Clint just completely made a case for the Resource Center and why it is that we exist. So all of those things that Clint mentioned about tips and tricks as far as before an application or after an application, those are things that the Resource Center does. So just a few things I wanted to make sure that I highlight. And that was, first of all, what Clint said about starting early on an application. I'm pretty sure that even though they were all on mute, I heard every one of our grant writers on this call say yes. So again, so very, very important. As soon as you find out about an opportunity that you think is a fit, jump on that, because the more time, the better. Also, things that Clint mentioned about making sure you're registered in systems before you do an application, helping with what you need to do after the fact, forms you need to fill out, narratives, budgets you need to provide. All of those things are things that the Resource Center will help you with, and that's all part of our services that come at no cost. Another thing I wanted to make sure that I mentioned based off of something Clint said was, as far as looking for the newest versions of applications, forms, things like that, that is another great reason why using a grant writer is helpful. Not just our grant writers, but every grant writer out there is going to be on top of all of the newest NOFOs, the newest application versions, template versions, all of those things. So, another reason to work with us and work with our grant writers will be that they can be sure that they have all of those latest versions of everything, so that it's not something that you have to worry about. Because as Clint mentioned, it can be confusing trying to figure out, am I on the right web page? Am I downloading the right form? So just another thing that our wonderful grant writers will take off of your shoulders. So thank you again, Clint. And now I would like to turn the time over to Jenna Patton from the Environmental Protection Agency.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, can you see it okay?
Yes, thank you.
Can you see the full slide?
No.
No, okay. I'm going to go to presentation mode. Sure. Okay. All right. So I'm actually wearing two hats today in my presentation. As my colleagues alluded to, there's a lot of work happening across federal agencies with this interagency working group on coal and power plant communities. So I'm going to give a little bit of a teaser on the resources that the IWG has for communities that have been impacted by coal and coal-fired plant closures. And then I'll go into some of the EPA opportunities that exist as well. So as I mentioned, there is the Interagency Working Group on Coal and Power Plant Communities and Economic Revitalization. This was created in Executive Order 14008 several years ago. And, this is an initiative really meant to help to tackle the climate crisis as we are transitioning away from fossil fuel industry. We are looking at transitioning toward renewables. We don't want to make sure that no communities have been left behind, and specifically those communities that have been powering our country since its inception. So there are 12 different agencies that are part of the IWG, including EPA, EDA, and USDA all are here today. And we work together in places to make sure that our federal investments, as well as outside of the federal government investments, are reaching the places that need it most. And so we really, this effort was informed by stakeholder engagements early on to make sure that we were meeting the needs of coal communities across the country. And you can see some of the big areas of interest related to infrastructure, environmental damage, promoting entrepreneurship, and supporting workforce development and worker displacement. So we do this through the deployment of these rapid response teams, is what we call them, in different regions across the country. And of interest to Arizona is that there's a Four Corners rapid response team that has been working specifically in Northeast Arizona. And it's led by Kevin John from Los Alamos National Laboratory. They've been doing some really important work there in trying to make sure that we're getting investments to the areas that are being directly impacted by some of the recent closures, including Navajo and other power plants in the region. This is just a little bit of information about the type of work that the IWG has been doing, the type of investments that it's been driving into communities across the country, the number of people engaged. We've been having a lot of engagement sessions to really make sure we're reaching communities with the types of investments that are out there right now. And one important resource that all of you should be aware of if you're not already is that there is this funding clearinghouse that's housed on the IWG's website. This is energycommunities.gov/funding. You can take a look and search through open funding and technical assistance opportunities that exist, and you can look by kind of your eligibility, whether you're a local government, tribal government, a community-based organization, to understand what's out there and how it might be able to help support the needs of your community as it relates. So some of them have specific energy carve-outs, and some of them are more just cover issues like water infrastructure that energy communities might be specifically looking for. And this is just a point about the Inflation Reduction Act, which has given the federal government a lot of funding to tackle some of the big climate issues right now. The focus for energy communities in particular has been through tax credits and helping to spur development and investment in these communities. And then also really with the worker and community and environmental justice angle to make sure that we are supporting families and workers in these communities, some of which have been facing disinvestment for a long time. And so the hope is that these funds that are coming through, and I'll talk a little bit about these two, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and Environment and Climate Justice grants coming out of EPA to help support these particular needs. So if you want to learn more about the Energy Communities IWG, please take a look at the website. There's a bunch of resources, including a relatively new funding navigator where you can actually just reach out to a person if you have questions about some of the funding opportunities that exist for energy communities or for questions about is there a rapid response team in your region? You can just go to the website, find the funding navigator, and ask them directly. And you can find us on all these other platforms as well. With that, I will transition over to the Environmental Protection Agency, where I'm in the Office of Policy at EPA, and I'm going to be talking about just a subset of some of the many funding and technical assistance opportunities that we have available, and that we will be, not all of them are open right now, but some of them will be coming out that we feature regularly. So one of the first programs I just wanted to talk about is brownfields, just because, this might be kind of the point of entry for communities as your, site cleanup could be really the beginning of the work that you're doing to reach your community-driven goals. And our brownfields program, we've got a lot of different grant opportunities through it to help communities in the different stages of cleanup or land revitalization. None of these are open at the moment, but communities that applied recently will be finding out in the spring, summer timeframe whether or not they have been awarded. And for those of you who are thinking about a brownfields opportunity in the near future, usually we have opportunities come up in the fall for applying. So now's the time to start thinking about developing or sort of organizing those coalitions and talking to the state to find out or to really get organized for making those applications when the time comes. We also have a lot of technical assistance support to brownfields communities. We have both national technical assistance providers to help support applications and planning, and then we also have regional support for technical assistance. So I put the information for the Region 9 and 10 technical assistance provider, which is the Center for Creative Land Recycling. And another really important contact for you as you're thinking about brownfields redevelopment is just your Region 9 contact. So you can find that information at this website and reach out to them with any questions related to, whether there is already been an award in your region and when you might be able to tap into some of those brownfields funds, or to learn about, when there might be opportunities coming down the pike, or to learn more about the different types of these grants that are offered through the brownfields program. Another type of technical assistance that we offer through actually the Office of Policy's Office of Community Revitalization are these 3 different technical assistance programs. None of them are open at the moment, but they will be eventually. And I think the cycles have closed for the beginning of this year, at least. And these are all sort of focused on that early stage of planning, getting communities getting organized and thinking about some of the smart growth development approaches and like land revitalization, brownfields development that's happening. They're around sort of setting up local workshops and bringing together partners to discuss some of the issues that your communities are facing. So this Building Blocks for Sustainable Communities is sort of a smart growth development approach. There's a range of available topics that you can think about with your community based on your community's needs. And then the Local Foods, Local Places technical assistance is really focused in on that sort of local foods needs, and whether you're thinking about planning a farmer's market in your community to help revitalize your downtown, sort of those early stages of planning those things out before you might tap into some of the larger dollars that can be focused in on these projects from places like USDA or EDA. And then the third technical assistance program is the Recreation Economy for Rural Communities. This is another sort of community revitalization program, but focused really in through that outdoor recreation angle. So if that is a real goal for your community, this could be a good opportunity as well. And you can find out more about each of these technical assistance programs on this website, epa.gov/smartgrowth, and also sign up for a newsletter on that website that would, tag you in when these programs do and open up for applications. So I'm also going to talk about the Water Technical Assistance Program that we have at EPA. Just a quick note on our water infrastructure dollars. EPA does, it's a lot of the money that we give out is related to water infrastructure. And most of that funding goes directly to the states and tribes through formula funds. So if you're interested in water infrastructure projects, your state environmental agency is going to be where you want to go. But if you're in this kind of stages of technical assistance and planning for for the water infrastructure, drinking water or wastewater, you can request technical assistance from EPA on a range of kind of planning related needs. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that there is this request form that you can fill out. It's pretty straightforward at www.epa.gov/waterTA. And what's great about this particular program is that you can write in your specific needs of your community, and the people on the other end of that request form will help give you a tailored they based on your needs can give you a tailored, this technical assistance program will be the right fit for your needs based on what you told us. So it takes a little bit of the mystery out of the technical assistance that we provide, because there are many different options based on who you are and where you're located and what your needs are. So this can help with that, sort of make that a little bit easier on your end and put the burden on the experts at EPA. And we work with contractors to provide lots of technical assistance support in all of the ways of developing plans and figuring out financial capacity and developing application materials as well. So please make sure that you are taking advantage of this program. We also have we've just expanded a program for closing America's wastewater gap. And so we initially, through bipartisan infrastructure law funding, had funds to help support a pilot amount, like a small amount of communities to support their wastewater needs in rural and tribal areas. And that was just expanded to over 150 communities. So we have a lot more technical assistance support in that particular vein of wastewater support. And this can be like pretty much, there's a whole bunch of different ways in which the technical assistance can help. So please take a look at that program, and I can share more information to Local First to make sure we get that to you as well. Now, one open application opportunity that I wanted to make sure shared with all of you today is the Community Change Grants Program, which is funded through Inflation Reduction Act funds, $3 billion, and it's directed entirely to disadvantaged communities. This is run through our Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights. And the goal is really making sure that we are funding community-driven pollution and climate resiliency solutions and investing in communities that have been typically underinvested in. So, so this program is currently open, rolling applications until November 21st of this year. All of the funding has to go out by the end of September of 2026. So we are really excited that this has been a focus of this particular of the Office of Environmental Justice. And there are two tracks for applications: community-based organizations and partnerships with community-based organizations are eligible to apply. And you can find all the details for this on our website, which I can share information on. But there are two tracks for applying. There's this community-driven investments for change, which focuses on those climate and pollution reduction strategies. And then this track 2, which is meaningful engagement for equitable governance. And that one is focused in on really making sure that we are developing that infrastructure for equitable engagement and involvement in those pollution reduction and climate strategies at the local level. In addition to those two tracks, and for the application support for applying for this program, we've got two different technical assistance opportunities. We have the Community Change Technical Assistance, which gives broad pre-award and post-award technical assistance support. And you can access the request form up here if you have questions about this opportunity, whether you're eligible. This is a good place to go. You can also call this hotline. Very old school. We've got the phone line even, in addition to email and website. So making sure that everyone can access this technical assistance if needed. And then we also have this Community Change Equitable Resilience Technical Assistance, which is tailored more to disaster-prone areas who need additional design support as they are attempting to apply for these community change grants. So this can help with some supporting the design needs to really build out the types of projects that could go into your application for the community change grants. So really trying to support the application process as much as possible. And related to kind of Clint's recommendations on applications, you know, one of the things that I would recommend is, like, in addition to reading the NOFO and watching the webinars that we offer for all of our programs, is really take advantage of the free technical assistance that is offered when it's offered with our programs, because it's a really good way to just, you know, ask those questions that you have early on, find, you know, especially if you're going to rule out applying for something that might not be the right fit, just take advantage of that direct assistance that you can achieve within the federal government. And the final sort of program that I just wanted to raise up for all of you is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. This is not currently open, it's closed, but we soon have an announcement about the awardees for this program. And, you know, this is a $27 billion program that got kicked off at EPA. And, you know, with the real goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and finance clean technology projects across the country. So for the National Clean Investment Fund, there will be about two to three national nonprofit financing entities who can help fund those types of projects across the country. And also the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, which will fund hub nonprofits all over the country to provide funding and technical assistance on financing clean technology projects. So these are going to be really good opportunities to be supported and potentially funded to do really important clean technology projects that may be of interest to you here in Arizona. So with that, I will leave some time, I think, for questions, and you can reach out to me with my contact information was at the very beginning here if you have any additional questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jenna. All right, so a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that I reiterate that Jenna mentioned is all of the technical assistance that EPA provides. That is something that even I, doing this all day, every day for the last few years, did not even know that EPA provided. So such wonderful information. Like she mentioned, the technical assistance is free. It's easy to sign up for. So definitely take advantage of that. Okay, so before we move into some questions, I wanted to just kind of bring us all home here together and kind of wrap this up. So I wanted to mention to all of you that any and all of the applications and programs that our three presenters mentioned today are things that we at the Resource Center can help you with. So what I would recommend is, if you are interested in any of these opportunities that were mentioned today, reach out to us and we're more than happy to help you figure out which of those opportunities is the best fit for your organization. And we will pair you with a grant writer who is an expert at these applications. We have over 30 grant writers that we work with, and we have experts at applying for EDA, USDA, and EPA. So no matter which program you're interested in or funder, we've got somebody that is an expert and is happy to help you out. So just kind of wanted to bring all of that together, remind you that any of these programs you're interested in, we are excited to help you with. And then in addition to the one-on-one service that the Resource Center provides, I also wanted to direct you to our webpage, which I will pop in the chat, because in addition to providing a way for you to directly get in touch with us, We also have a newsletter you can sign up for that comes out every Monday that is loaded with all of the latest grant opportunities that we have been able to find. We house a live list of those grant opportunities on our website. And then we also have a resources page, which is chock full of webinars and checklists and articles and templates and anything and everything that might be helpful to someone who is entering into this grants world. So anything from, you know, how to make sure you're signed up in the right government systems, all the way to, you know, templates for showing what you've spent your money on when the grant has been awarded. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. We'll pop that in the chat as an additional resource. And then what you're seeing on the screen here is my contact information. Please give me a call, shoot me an email, reach out if you have any questions at all, if you'd like to meet and discuss any of these federal or other opportunities that you're interested in. We would love to meet with you and talk through that. So I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And then if anyone has any questions for me or for any of our presenters, just go ahead and unmute yourself and go for it. And thank you, Vita, for adding the web page to the chat.
One question
Hi,
I'll ask.
oh,
Go ahead.
oh, hi, this is Shauna Tarboro with the Arizona Fair Housing Center. I don't have a question as much as I would like to commend you guys for this webinar. Oftentimes we go into webinars on grants and different opportunities, and there's not enough information, or we feel like we're left hanging. So I really appreciate the work that you do with Local First, and for all of you guys at these federal agencies taking the time out, because it really, really does help us. And when we feel good about what we do better work. So I appreciate the support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Those are very kind words. And I think, you know, to jump off of that, these three representatives are amazing, wonderful people who are very responsive. And it's just, you just don't get that with every federal agency or funding agency in general. You know, you don't often get a specific person with an actual name and phone number and email address that you can reach out to. And these people are providing that to us. And so that's just really, really wonderful. And thank you, the three of you again, for being so available. Yes, we can get a copy of the presentations. Absolutely. Jenna, did you want to jump into your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to, Jeff and Clint in particular might want to comment on this. I'll leave that up to them. But one of the things, both as Local First as a nonprofit we work on, and then also at the Resource Center with the services we provide, is how you can stack and fit these programs and support together. So an example I'll give is Local First won a community facilities technical assistance grant from USDA. So that means we're the technical assistance provider to communities on their community facilities plans and strategies. And the technical assistance we're giving them includes what we call capital stacks, right? So to think about at what phase of the project should you be seeking which types of funding and other support. So it was really interesting. The EPA did come in here as well with some of the brownfields information, for example. But just as you think about something like a community facility, depending on, you know, again, whose facility is it? Is it an eligible entity? What are its end uses? But I saw from all of these funders places that are probably worth a conversation, right? Because Jeff talked about, you know, the technical assistance in the ways of studies and strategies. And one of the end uses is to be a maker space, an incubator. So it's kind of interesting to say, oh, we should probably have that conversation with Jeff. Then because the TA support came from the USDA, that agency has a lot of interest in seeing what we turn in at the end of this grant. Can it then go for the community facilities loans and grants that the USDA offers? And then one of them possibly 2 of those projects would qualify for brownfields needs around assessments that need to happen. One of those is probably a tribal brownfields assessment, but that will probably need to happen to see, okay, what's here, and are there environmental issues, concerns, things of that nature where the development needs to go down that path and get some of that support. So I just wanted to, if the funders don't mind me putting them on the spot, anything you would add about that, or to say to think about differently? I think it can be really easy to think of you each in silos, right? And I'm only going after this funding, but how and do you see many projects that have that crossover or intersection?
Yeah. So I'll jump in on that. So yeah, there are, and that's where it gets back to having that call and having those conversations to frame out the product, because there are parts and pieces that we can fund from, like EDA won't necessarily get into any kind of civic project, but those civic products that would be like an incubator or business, and it falls under facilities as well. So there are crossovers with that. So where USDA's monies are more on the physical structure side, we would be able to potentially fund the design up front and the financial feasibility. So creating the financial model and all the design work to implement that project, which then leads it up to get it to USDA standards for financing. So that's where we'd really need to sit down and kind of strategize that. But the funds necessarily can't match, but they still can be used to facilitate projects. They just can't be matched as the local shares, right? So there's that opportunity to really do that. And likewise, rural business development grants can often be used to help foster projects that we do. And that is proven with Pasquiaki's project down in Tucson.
Yeah, I'll jump into Mrs. Clint. As we always like to see, I always like to see leveraging in these projects, and additional funding that comes in to make a small project larger, or get a project to the finish line where maybe it wouldn't have with just one funder. Again, every grant that we do is scored, and part of it is where's the other funds coming from, but we can't count other federal funds as matching funds. So I mean, they can be part of the project, but we just can't count them as matching funds. I don't think any federal agency can use federal funds to match federal funds. There's always also another challenge, and this is where needs to be great flexibility, is our deadlines don't always line up. so you might have to have a contingency plan if in case one doesn't get funded and one does, those kind of things, to be flexible. This isn't an easy game to play, either from the funder side or the recipient side.
Yeah, and I will just add quickly, agreed. And I think, as federal agencies, we do not make this easy for everyone. We're working on it. But one of the things that's been really helpful about at least the interagency working group on energy communities work is, like, because there are multiple agencies involved and working closely with those rapid response teams in places, it has given, it's sort of a venue for that, like, sharing of information across federal partners to really get on the same page about, okay, here are some programs that could work together to help with your housing needs or your infrastructure needs, because all of us sort of have, as you've heard, like, different, we can fund infrastructure or do technical assistance on infrastructure in different ways. So even just getting the federal partners in the same room to have those conversations before we bring that to a community on their particular project is a really useful model for this IWG, and hopefully it can that work can continue. And it's important in coal communities, but it's also important across the country. So in figuring out other ways to do similar things where we're figuring out how to better help communities and partners, like, leverage and breed the funding opportunities that exist.
Thank you all, and thank you, Jenna. That was a great question. And this is something also that Vita and myself can help with through the Resource Center. A lot of the work that we do with clients is looking at all of your funding needs and figuring out how we're going to stack different applications and different funders together in order to get you that whole picture of everything that you need. So again, that is part of something that we will do, that we're happy to do, and help take off of your shoulders. Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Feifei Zhang. I'm working at the Economic Policy Institute at Northern Arizona University. So we are a community outreach institute, and we also do technical assistance for rural and tribal communities. I have a very specific question. So we are reached out by the Hopi Economic Development Corporation, and they asked if we can provide some technical assistance for their, so they have tribal members working in the Twin Arrows Casino, which is on Navajo land. And so their workers, they have to commute a far distance. And because of that, limit their opportunity to work there. And they have a piece of land on Hopi land. And they want us to help to develop some workhouse housing for them. We can do some, we can talk to them and find out their needs and parameters for the housing. But I'm not sure what other, like if we want to apply for some funding or loan, like which agency will be most appropriate. From all this information, I'm thinking maybe the USDA housing loan is appropriate, but there also is there related to like the design of housing and also legal issues. It feels like need multiple stakeholders to be in this project. So I want to ask your opinion.
I'll let the funders jump in, but you can absolutely introduce them to us, and we will be more than happy to help. We might already be talking to the same person, so let's connect offline and see if that is the case, because we are also working with them. But we would be more than happy to meet with you and meet with the organization and figure out, based on the type of housing they're looking for, where it's located, who owns the land, all that stuff, which funders might be the best fit for that group. But I'll mute myself now and let the actual funders speak.
This is Clint with USDA Rural Development. USDA Rural Development has a multifamily housing program. It has been centralized, but I do have contact information if you would like to send me your contact information. And I'm gonna I will make sure I get that to you, who you can contact, and also some I think there may have even been a recent notice of funding opportunity for our multifamily housing programs, but I'll get that out to you.
Great, thank you. I'll send you an email.
What's that?
I'll send you an email of
Okay,
so you can know
okay,
my email.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, last page of my presentation was our contact information.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Katie, this is Steve Peters. So I coordinate the Arizona Broadband Stakeholder Digital Access Task Force, and I want to qualify my question. And I'm certainly aware of all the federal funding coming down for broadband, the MTIA, the BEAD funding, USDA, and all of that sort of stuff. But I'm wondering, as you're doing these programs, if you're running into issues with these communities when you talk about community revitalization, workforce development, and so forth, whether broadband has become an issue for them, and how or if your agencies provide any other support, funding, et cetera, for broadband outside of all those other federal programs that are going on today. Nobody wants to touch that one.
No, Jeff Hayes. No, I'm just trying to get to my mute button there. Sorry. So the broader regional plans, are being handled, and some of the stuff. There are elements where that last mile, or there is that specific, in our case with EDA, would be looking at the business enterprise elements of it, like an industrial park or expanding services to a targeted product or region, like a downtown product. So the best money would be, and the easiest funding access would be some kind of design element or study, which you would need to get the cost funding for the actual infrastructure, but we could also fund that as well. So where we wouldn't necessarily partake in a larger regional plan or element, it would be that last piece to connecting it to a specific zone or business district, or maybe a possible new building coming in that's going to be like a manufacturing facility, but they need fiber to extend it out to that service. The key on that's going to be is who owns and where the benefit comes from. So it has to stay within that realm of a public infrastructure project. And which in the case we've looked at that before, even when I was with USDA, where you would the ownership of the conduit and the facilities were owned by the public utilities, and then which then provides the conduit or infrastructure to get those services to the community. So it's a quasi-public thing, but the ownership of the infrastructure is public. The actual utility runs are owned by the private enterprises.
Okay. Any other thoughts anybody has? Okay, thank you.
And if I can just jump in, if those of you on this call don't know Steve, I just want to give him a shout out. He's like a wealth of knowledge on broadband and has done a ton to convene a lot of different interests who need to know, right, what's happening with broadband, and does an email that keeps people informed. So I just wanted to give you a shout out, Steve, as that's all very useful and I think has made a big difference for Arizona to stay a bit coordinated on that front. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna. And if anybody's interested, I do coordinate as I mentioned, the Arizona Broadband Stakeholder Network. We meet Thursday mornings at 8 o'clock. We've been meeting for over 3 years now, and I do a newsletter, and that is open to anybody who wishes to participate. Jeff, I think you're actually on my list. Sharon Matiba gave me your name a long time ago. But if any of you others are interested, I'll put my contact information in the chat, and you're more than welcome to participate with us. Thank you, Jenna.
I do have a question. My name is Evelyn Vargas, Economic Development Director for the town of Miami, Arizona. And, you know, we have two iconic buildings that are pretty historical to the community. They're privately owned. We have plans if we could secure them. But I guess the question is, you know, how do we secure privately owned buildings to develop them into recreation, community, educational incubator spaces? Because that is the plan for these buildings if we could somehow get them secured. Any thoughts on that? I guess I'm asking, you know, how do we secure privately owned building? Can we do that through grant money? You know, we can secure partners for sure, but where do we get the grant support? So I guess that's a question too for Local First, you know, to help us work through that process.
Jump in as usual. But,
That's a tough one, Evelyn. Are the buildings for sale? Are they?
They're both for sale.
Okay.
Yeah.
From the Local First perspective, I don't know off the top of my head of a funder that would fund that, but it's certainly something that we could research. Absolutely. But I'll let Jeff go
Yeah, this is Clint. There are some opportunities through USDA rural development where projects like that could be purchased and renovated. A lot of times those kind of projects exceed the available funds that we have for our grants. Another option, as we always point out, is which, you know, it isn't favorable, but there are loan programs out there, revolving loan funds and things like that that can help in some of these things. As long as, you know, there's a plan, there's a repayment plan, you know, that can be done. They're just you gotta, you know, just big dollar projects, we just don't have that kind of funding here at USDA Rural Development.
So to jump in on that to kind of piggyback, and I lost some of that, my internet froze there, but for EDA, we could do that. I think what you're going to run to, and having been involved in these projects, it's a long slog to get through that process. So if you are going to enter into a purchase agreement, you need a good due diligence period, as well as a good contract that gives you time to put the financing together, because no agency is going to move that quick, right? But any agency you're going to go after to seek funding is going to want to look at that pre-development package I mentioned earlier, which is like, have you done your studies? Have you done a financial due diligence program? What are you going to do? What's your purpose of it? And have you looked through all those things? EDA can fund that study. In other words, that exploration, if it's going to stay to the point of a business incubator or facility that's going to foster economic development. It can also be partly shared. We've got a project out with Fort Apache where the first 2 floors are going to be business operational stuff, and the 3rd floor of this old historic building is going to be housing. So we're funding our prorated share through that project. But to do that, you also needed the environmental studies, the asbestos removal, which is also a good partner, as ADQ is also a good partner in that when you're looking at those things to assess asbestos and other issues that go along with that. But there's a lot more due diligence on the front end to be done before we get into that contract possibly, or part of that. But if you're going to enter a contract, you really need a lengthy period of time with that seller, because if you're expecting it to happen unless the city has the money to buy it cash up front and then sit on it while you're going through these other exercises. And then EDA could potentially be a partner in funding that, depending on the scale and the complexity of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Great questions, everybody. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Well, then just to wrap it up, we will provide the slides to everyone. We've got your information from the registration. We will be working on where we're going to post this recording, but we will post it on our website as well. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention before we close is that we, as Local First Arizona, have a Rural Policy Forum event coming up in August. It's one of our biggest events that we do throughout the year. We will have funders there presenting. We will be having a special funding workshop for tribes and tribal organizations. And we'll also have a resource rural roundup as well, where we provide resources in addition to just funding, but additional resources to rural organizations. And that is coming up August 7th through 9th, I believe. And it will be in Clarkdale, in the Clarkdale Cottonwood area. And Jenna's gonna post a link to that in the chat. So just, you know, as we're moving forward, just wanted to keep you updated of some additional resources for rural having to do with funding. And so we hope that you will take a look at that and that'll be of interest to you as well. Go ahead, Jeff.
So just more of an announcement and putting this out to the communities there. So many of you have heard about the investment that Commerce is putting into the Intel plant in Chandler. And not that that's more rural, but or not rural, but they have our headquarters has reached out to myself and others to look at workforce development programming and partners that they can create a introduction to Intel. Intel's going to get the money. They're going to make their own decisions. But with the expectation of 40,000 jobs, there's a lot of pipeline to fill there. They're looking for partners. So if there's a program, what we don't know is what's at the table for the partner in that process and how that's going to be done. But they are looking for groups that are interested. So if you have a smaller group, I'm promoting it from a point of how do we get those communities that are outside the urban landscape and that would recruit in and still provide services to that area, you know, Pinal County, eastern part of Maricopa and Gila County. That if you've got a program or you're interested, please forward your information to me. I can pass that up so that they're trying to basically create an opportunity and an environment so that those groups can meet and either open up to Intel, and then they can then forge that relationship, hopefully, and explore what those options or needs are. But they really are looking at partners to bring for that pipeline and workforce training programs.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, everybody. Well, with that, on behalf of Vida and Jenna and myself, we want to thank you very much for attending today. We hope that you were able to get some useful tips and information out of this. And we look forward to seeing you all and hopefully talking to you all soon. Have a really great rest of your day and a great rest of your week.